Well, next we have, I think, a team that needs no introduction. The one and only Clarisse Bardiot and Jacob Hart, who have obviously done an incredible job organizing this conference, along with Jean. So, apologies, and so many here. So, we have our final presentation of the day before we have our wonderful keynote shortly after. So, with that, I will turn it over to a team extraordinaire.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we'll start our duo. Just to start with a few words as a historian of contemporary performing arts, I'm always confronted with multimodal documents, be they text, photographs, video recordings, programs, or digitized documents made available by special collections. So all the documents that you have just seen are a selection from 20,000 documents, digital traces of one creative process. A performance entitled Rewalden, staged by Jean-François Perret for the Avignon Festival in 2013. So during the this is the outside document and this is Walden. And so during the creation process, among other formats, the same work led also to an installation presented at Le Frénois, and then also performance in New York at, nearby New York at MPAC. So it has been quite a complex production. So going back to creative processes, following literature genetic criticism, performing arts studies developed since the 90s, more or less, performance genetic analysis, shifting the research focus from the work to its creative process. And in this new research field, scholars long directed their effort to participant observation of rehearsals. Rehearsal studies are crucial, but they cannot be considered synonymous with a creative process that starts years or months before the premiere and also takes place off stage. Digital traces, often ignored in actual research on creative processes, offer new opportunities. They are produced by every member of the team, and they allow us to consider the whole creation process from the very first ideas to the premiere, and not only the rehearsals, not only the director and the actors, as it is usually the case. So I also have a very strong interest, for example, in scenography or technical part of the creation process. So studying creative processes from its digital traces will lead us to answer questions as such. How to track the emergence of ideas in a collective creative process? How to analyze collaboration? What is the impact of on techniques on aesthetics and vice versa? And if you go to comparative methods, what are the characteristics of different creative processes? Do they share common features? Or do they vary according to the context, the aesthetics, the company? This is why we do need a multimodal environment to study creative processes. So, to study multimodal documents, we are confronted with two main issues. The first one is that the usual practices of digital humanities are to separate documents by file type and to work in silos. You work with text, you work with images, but not most of them at the same time, most of the time. And such processing prevents us from obtaining an overall view of the collected traces and from examining many phenomena, such as the evolution of an idea through different traces, for example, from an image to a text, from a text to a video recording, and so on. And the second issue is the elephant in the room, which is if digital traces need to be instrumented to analyze them, the question remains how and at what cost. The risk is the loss of the overall view of the trace and the context from which the data was extracted. So to answer such questions, I've developed since 2007 a prototype recall for distant viewing and multimodal analysis of a creative process and a web app, memory call for close reading and annotation of video recordings, considered as one of the main traces of performing arts. Nonetheless, these two first solutions needed many improvements. They are not interoperable, are only concerned with metadata of the different documents, record is standalone, and so on. And moreover, it is essential to be able to navigate between micro and macro, between distant reading and close reading, between diachronic and synchronic representations, and in other words, being able to represent a creation process without erasing its complexity. So this is why we started a new solution. So the name is Scene, and since last week we know that there is another Scene project inside IIIF, I'm not sure we will keep this name. So it's kind of a working title.
Hello, so I'm going to take you through Scene, which we've been working on and off for about a year now. We released our prototype in May 2023, and development began again last November. So Scene's point of departure is IIIF, the International Image Interoperability Framework. As we've seen in Régis Robineau's presentation, IIIF was initially conceived of as a set of standards to allow for interoperable sharing, referencing, and annotation of digital images. With Scene, we use it as a framework at the base of an environment for multimodal document network analysis. For those who were at our workshop yesterday, you'll have already been able to get your hands on the current version. For those who weren't there, I'll go over the main functionalities now. So at its base, Scene takes the fork of the IIIF view, takes the form of a fork of the IIIF viewer Mirador. So it's one of the major IIIF viewers, developed principally by colleagues at Stanford and Leipzig, and it is also typically the viewer of choice for researchers. Naturally, Mirador already supports images, however, video and audio are not supported in the main version of this viewer. The first step for multimodal annotation was to support video and audio documents. So Scene contributes this functionality to the IIIF community, departing from work by the Tokyo University, which we actually saw a slide of in Régis' presentation. We've created a branch of Mirador that supports full audio and video playback. And we're working currently with the Mirador development team to integrate this functionality as part of the main version of their viewer. So second important step, for close reading of documents, we often need to annotate them. So in Scene, documents of any kind can be annotated in a number of ways. Textual annotations, visual overlays, time-based annotations for audio and video documents. And also every document and every annotation in Scene can be given metadata by default following the Dublin Core ontology. So annotations are not only for close reading. If we consider workflows with semantic data extraction of documents, then it's also possible to extract automatic annotations from the documents, for example, with NLP or computer vision. So right now, this is something that has to be done outside of Scene, but we are working on integrating curated artificial intelligence and machine learning-driven workflows, and as well as a middle ground compromise in the form of an open RESTful API. So one useful functionality for this is the ability for annotations to be linked to another document, which allows the user to create and navigate networks of multimodal documents. These networks can be explored fluidly, allowing for seamless shifts in perspective between close and distant reading approaches. This functionality also ensures that artifacts such as computationally driven visualizations of document collections can be decomposed and lead back to the various original sources. So here we're going to have a short video that's demonstrating some of these functionalities in action across a number of workflows. So first of all, we have the video playback that is supported in Mirador. And now we have adding of different kinds of annotations. So for those who are in the workshop, you'll notice that we've already slightly improved the interface for annotation creation since we recorded this video. So here we have an overlay annotation, a simple shape. We can also have images that will overlay a document. And we can also have, for example, annotations that are linked to a file. So this is an example of interdocumentary annotations. Here we've an example of time-linked annotations mixed with overlay annotations, which allow us to superimpose these two documents that are depicting the movements of these dancers here, as well as actually seeing the movements in the video. And here we have an example of manifest networks which make use of the annotations being linked to another IIIF manifest, another document. And so we have an example of a data-driven interface, which here is a kind of traditional network graph. Here we have the same collection of documents, but that have been configured using an automatic algorithm. And we can also explore the idea of more bespoke data-driven interfaces. So here, rather than a network graph, we have, I won't go into the details, but it was a collaboration analytics typology compass based on work by Dominique. And here we just have a brief overview of putting it all together, showing also that we can break out of the mosaic view into this elastic view, which allows us to create these quite complex configurations of the workspace, which of course can be exported and imported as we wish. So that's seen.
Still you.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Scene will be an open source, free-to-use web app. So the idea is that anyone with an email address will be able to create an account and start adding, annotating, and engaging with content. So this is also a notable contribution to the IIIF community, which can sometimes suffer from quite a significant technical barrier that needs to be overcome in order to start using IIIF-driven content and approaches. So following IIIF's philosophy of interoperability and open access to cultural heritage, Scene preserves access to the source document. It also offers a multimodal environment where users can account for all of their documents. It will offer the possibility to publish in the same environment documents, data, its analysis, and the narrative. And as of September 2024, the beta version of Scene will be freely available as a flexible and open tool to engage with digital collections. But for those who are curious before then, you can go to this link where there's a live demo where you can start playing around with things.
So this project follows a practice-driven approach to development based on case studies and workshops. So this is a very first attempt to study the creation process of Rewalden. Here, you see it's possible to compare the score of the performance, one of the very first photograph made at Walden Pond, figuring the trees. And this image was the starting point from different scenographies, elements during the impact performance and also for the Avignon performance. So with scene, two types of annotations are proposed. And I would like to go back and annotations. In performing arts, when you talk about annotations, it evokes another word, which is notation, which is also the score. So these two terms, annotations and notations, are not synonymous. And in the difference between them, maybe it's easier to understand what we do and mean with annotation in scene. Here I would refer to Nelson Goodman and the difference between orthographic and allographic works. And so for Nelson Goodman, the notation is what makes the difference between orthographic and allographic works. So allographic works are works which are replayable, like, for example, music or performing arts. And so to make this work replayable, you need something which is a score. And so the score is a symbolic system of notation, that is to say, a transcription of a symbolic nature. And a notation is very different from that. It's not a score. It needs a pre-existing document and adds something to pre-existing data in order to clarify its semiotic content. So of course, notation and annotation in performing arts are not always so clearly separated, and there could be a continuum between notation and annotation. So what we are doing in scene is to have two kinds of annotations. One is what we call intra-documentary. So this means that with text annotations, for example, you enhance the meaning of the video recordings. So it's possible to explain in a few words what is going on or what you don't see in the image. So it's how to make explicit the implicit. And the inter-documentary approach is to link, to connect the video recording or the images or whatever to other documents. So to us, connecting different documents to a main one, it's also a way to process with annotation. So, but I think I'm running out of time. Just to say that it's also a process to make redocumentarization. So this is a definition by Manuel Zaclad. So the internal and external dimension, which are described here, refer to the two approaches previously identified. So combined, they simultaneously play different relationships to the document between deepening and connection, and offer several layers of navigation inside and outside the documents. So in terms of the way to use scene, there are many possibilities. Preservation, documentation, publishing, teaching, communication, and so on. And right now, scene is part of a larger project where all of these uses will be addressed. So it has been funded by an ERC grant, which has started this last January. So I don't have a lot to say about that because I have only just a month behind for this project. But I would, so to conclude, I just will say a few words about it. So the stage project is about the digital traces of performing arts and their crucial role in writing the history of contemporary performing arts, the new methods we need to make them talk, and the new knowledge we can build from them. So there are three interconnected objectives. The first one is using data from the programs to create a graph showing the interactions of people and creation context. For example, how does Jean-François Perez's network evolve over time? The second objective is from images and video recordings of the performances to reveal visual resurgences and quotations from thousands of photographs and video analysis. For example, how can we track the reminiscence of Bob Wilson or Mus Cunningham works from one performance to another one. And the third objective is to model creative processes, taking into account not only the rehearsals, but also all the data produced by all the team members. So here, this is where scene would be used mainly, but this is only part of this project. And so the goal is to gather an interdisciplinary team. We are hiring and we are looking for PhD students. So if you have some candidates, just give me their emails. So I will rely first on a corpus that has not been explored at this scale. The archives of the Avignon Festival before opening to broader Corpora and scaling up our results and expand our analysis. So all of this work has done with, yes, it's a team, a network project. So we are working with computer developers, designers, artists, researchers, and cultural institutions. And so thank you for your attention.
Is it? Thank you all so much. I'll turn it over for questions.
Fantastic. It's great to see this get kicked off, this project. I wondered, and reflecting on what Chloe was sharing about the science publishing, which I don't know much about that project, but this question of alternative publishing forums, and you've got communication on the list. I struggle to see where publishing, like publishing as an institution, begins to pick up on some of these innovations in trying to communicate what's happening in these multimodal spaces. There are a few efforts out there. There's JAR, which is the Journal for Artistic Research. There are a couple of science-oriented, Yortis, I think, is a science-orientation publication, more empirical science. Do you see anything on the horizon or opportunities for this to shift in the publishing domain, like scholarly publishing domain? I mean, this reflects a little bit on what you're doing.
Yeah, to me, the most promising one is what they have shown just before, because so the platform we use in France, but which is more and more European platform, which is Open Edition. It's kind of a standard right now for online scientific publications, at least in the humanities. And so to see that now it's possible to embed their IIIF documents and so on, it really opens new opportunities. So this very new project where you have so Open Edition, Humanum, and Metop talking together and taking care about the IIIF standard inside this process of publication is very good news to that. So, yeah, so it refers to the previous presentation. I don't know, maybe you would like to add something. Okay. So the point here with SIN is not to replace that. It's really more to focus on the documents and the work by the researchers on the documents, and to make public this annotation work, which most of the time remain private. We do it, on our side, but then when I was doing the very first try with the SIN platform for Rewalden, I had this will to publish it in order to propose a way to navigate from one document to another one, and to have kind of this storytelling from one document to another one. And so there are so much other IIIF projects, for example, which make stories, but it's a very different time frame, because at first you have to annotate, and then you have to clean, to select your annotations for publication. So it's not the same thing. They're not the same annotations.
Yeah, John. I'll have to have one after that. Yes, please go into the mic if possible for our online
Hi.
colleagues.
So I think this is a brilliant project, and I think it's a very, very smart idea to build this on Mirador rather than to start from zero. But I wonder about the implications for that in terms of both what that does to your design in terms of like basically setting the conditions for how you annotate, because you are building on a tool that was, well, I don't know anything about the development of Mirador, but I would like to assume that they thought a lot about annotating two-dimensional images and kind of went from there. So I wonder how much you intend in the long run. Right now it's a fork that seems very much like Mirador, but in the long run, how much do you plan to diverge from sort of original Mirador, and then what does that mean for maintenance and sustainability?
Yeah, so there are several aspects to that. So the audiovisual playback of content in Mirador, the idea for that is really for that to be integrated into the main version of Mirador, which also takes care of certain maintenance issues and things like that. And so annotations aren't inherently possible in Mirador. There's a widely used, I think it's the most used plugin for Mirador, which is an annotation plugin for Mirador for images. And so behind the scenes of Scene, there's this fork of Mirador, and then we have separately this annotation plugin, which will also be making, so everything will be open source, we'll also be making that available very soon, in fact, as part of the open source package. In terms of how we wish to depart from Mirador, so as we mentioned, you know, the technical gap of setting up IIIF image servers and using Mirador, that kind of stuff can be a bit of a headache at first, and so in terms of that core functionality, it's the multi-user environment is going to be something that proposes quite a force for that, in as much as people can just sign up and start using it, and that's it. And so obviously I mean, perhaps not obviously, but we do intend to do quite an extensive overhaul of the graphic user base of Mirador, which is possible because I mean we can already set themes and things like that, but yeah, it's written in quite a modular way in React, so that'll be possible as well. Yeah, and then it'll be a question of being in dialogue with the IIIF community in terms of things like, so we want to add support for streaming and PeerTube and things like that. When we were at the IIIF conference last year, although Regis brought up video streaming in his presentation, but some of the conversations we had, some of them seem a bit hesitant to sort of have video streaming as a thing in IIIF for various different reasons. But it's going to be, yeah, it's all going to be down to the conversations that we have with that community, you know, things like very simple things linking to other manifests. For the moment, we've done it by quite simply sort of adding a hashtag to the end of the address of your annotation and then adding the address to your manifest, things like that. And as the different use cases come by and as people start using this tool, we hope that will kind of like generate conversations with them and see what things need to be integrated into that main community. And yeah, so it'll be a process, and we'll see how things go. But,
and to go back to the design question, something what we were quite proud about with Memorical is that kids of 12 years old at school could use it. And to me, one of the goals is to really make it very, very simple which is not yet. So we are very far from something which is very simple. And so what we are thinking about, it's maybe to make some templates. So maybe you would have different versions of scene, and one for the kids, and another one for researchers. And so this is something that we are thinking about. It's really to have different kind of templates and functionalities, and also different kind of vocabulary. Because if you say manifest, you lose, well, 90% of the people. So, but if you say that it's a document, then it's easier. So this is a lot of, the kind of the things that we are really thinking about it right now, because we have this very first version, and we really would like to work with designers in order to make it simple, more transparent, and so on.
Well, I think we're right at time, and so this will be a perfect way to end about all the possibilities coming, moving forward with this incredible project scene. And thank you all again for the workshop yesterday, where I know many of us got to have a whole hour and a half to keep delving in. So this feels it's been incredible. So thank you all so much. Thanks to everyone. And we are back at 6 for our keynote.